I had an interesting intro. Like the more I watch these guys, the more interesting I started thinking. Because
Yeah.
in sports media, what we're always trying to do is one of two things. Really, we don't want to look at numbers or look at results because any computer or any person can do that.
Yeah.
In sports media, we're trying to either tell a story or stir up controversy.
Yes.
And I think with the title fight coming into UFC 262, we have Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. I think this fight lends itself extremely well to both occasions. It's controversial. We're going to discuss, like, is this title legitimate, or how legitimate is this title fight? And both of these guys' stories, they had mixed paths. They struggled to get to the title. They were extremely well regarded early in their careers, and the midpoint was a little bit, had a few losses here and there before recovering. And now they're at the highest point in their career. They're fighting for one of the most prestigious titles in sports, and it's taken them quite a while to get here. Both of them have struggled to get this far. Now, this is the Calf Kick Sports Podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton. Check me out, Tim Wheaton MMA. Make sure to subscribe. I'm joined, as always, by Ash. Ash, what's going on? What's new and exciting?
What up, Tim? Just been very busy. It feels like it's been almost a month since I spoke to you. That first week we released the podcast was very intense with those three. I'm very excited to break this one down. So looking forward to this one for sure.
Oh, I know. And like the behind the scenes curtain is that you and I have actually been texting and talking about this fight for like every day for a week now. It's so good that we can finally talk and break it down, you know?
Yeah, I know. We were trying to hold back as much as possible. Like, look, we got to leave the content for the podcast and our listeners. Honestly, man, I mean, I was like, I'm so tired from work. I'm going to have to go through all of Oliveira's fight history. And like an idiot, I was complaining in my head. And then I started watching it. And I'm like, this is just a joy to watch. Honestly, this guy is nonstop fucking action. Like, just amazing pleasure to watch.
Oh, he's so much fun. He does interesting, cool things. He's from the Chute Box Academy. Just his last 8-fight win streak, he's been at Chute Box. And because of it, he's doing a lot of really fun Muay Thai. He's been doing a flying front kick, which is really cool. He's doing a lot of knees. The elbows and the clinch are looking really good.
And elbows.
Yeah, I just wrote spinning shit here on my notes. Yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. I love that. It's easy to become a fan of Charles Oliveira. He's an awesome fighter to watch. And this fight, he's fighting Michael Chandler. I feel like this is a fight of, we have big heart versus big determination. You know, both guys have struggled to get to this point, and now they're fighting for the UFC lightweight title. They've risen to this occasion, and now we're going to question, how legitimate is this title? Fool's gold is what Dustin Poirier called it.
Yeah,
go ahead. What do you think?
I tend to agree, man. I'm gonna let rip a little bit, because even though I like both guys, by the way, I'm not biased in this at all. I wouldn't be opposed to either man winning, but let's face it, Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira, that should have been the real title fight. Now, Dustin Poirier did a very smart business decision, as Chandler mentioned the other day. He made a very good decision to fight Conor McGregor in a trilogy bout, and it's something that you can't turn down. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars in the bank, pay-per-view points, all that kind of stuff. Even if you're Khabib, who states, I'm doing this for legacy, I'm not doing it for money. Fuck that, man. You're gonna try and go for the big money fight. You're gonna try and go for the big trilogy fight. So I'm really glad that Dustin is finally getting paid his worth, which is great. But yeah, I tend to agree with what Dustin's comment said. It is fool's gold. What I do like about it is that neither men have faced Khabib. So it seems like the UFC are trying to get out of Khabib's shadow as quick as possible. They're like, oh, look, who's eligible for the title? Chandler looked really good in his debut. And Charles Oliveira has been looking like a monster. I mean, he took out the former boogeyman, Tony, in even more impressive fashion than how Justin took him out. So, I mean, great fight, great title fight. It should be the vacant title. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, Tim, it's fool's gold. Khabib, if you want us to come back, yeah, he's the real champ.
And that's what Ali Abdelaziz, the manager of Justin Gaethje and Khabib, had said, is that the UFC wants to set up a title where no guy has lost to Khabib, because it's a little bit weird. We have guys, interim champions, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, ranked 1 and 2. They've already lost to Khabib. So they're doing a title fight between 3 and I think 4. 2 guys who haven't fought Khabib. But not only that, in 66 MMA fights between Oliveira and Chandler, they have zero common opponents with Khabib. Like, I thought maybe there's a Gleason Tebow or like a Nick Lentz in their past or something like that. Not one common opponent between Khabib, Michael Chandler, and Charles Oliveira. But yeah, so this is as legitimate as they could have made it, because it sounds like they didn't want to have someone who's already lost to Khabib, even though we've already had 2 interim champions. And like you said, I think Dustin absolutely made the right choice, because this is the conditions that the UFC have built their titles around, or built their sport around, is that it makes a lot more sense to compete for money fight, to compete in prize fighting, to compete for money. He's got a business on the side. He's got a nonprofit organization. It makes a lot more sense to take the money fight than it does to take the legacy fight. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that is the structure that the UFC has right now, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, he even mentioned, look, I'm not the same guy as I was when I first fought Conor a few years ago. I mean, fighting was everything to me. I was a fighter first and everything else came second. Now I wear many different hats. I just remember this interview from a few months ago. He goes, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I've got business, I own a charity, all that kind of stuff. Fighting obviously is a big passion of mine, but it's not my number one passion anymore. And I think hence the reason why he's like, look, I'm going to go for the money fight. Obviously I want to be champ, but the money fight matters.
Oh, it absolutely does. It makes sense to his pocketbook. It makes sense in a few years to his business.
Yeah,
I think that's the right choice. So we get Charles Oliveira, a man who's cut his teeth in the UFC. He was born in the favela. He helped his mom sell, it says, cheese salads from a trailer as a way to support his family.
God damn, what a gangster.
What a gangster, man. This kid's comes. And the crazy thing is, so he couldn't afford jiu-jitsu classes, as all of his friends were doing jiu-jitsu and he couldn't afford it. Something weird where like his uncle knew the trainer, so he was allowed to train at the gym. Like, it's a weird story. He only started training MMA at the age of 12, which is only 8 years before his UFC debut. So he won a couple of jiu-jitsu. Oh, it's insane. He won a few jiu-jitsu. Oh man, he's a gangster indeed. And of course, after his Tony Ferguson win, we have it up on the Instagram now. He went back and donated a bunch of stuff to his village, his favela, to help support them through COVID. And apparently they really needed it. So he's a good man all around. He won a few jiu-jitsu tournaments as a purple belt and a blue belt. He's now a 3rd degree black belt. He began an MMA in tournament fighting. So he's not fought a 5-round fight his entire career, but he's fought 3 opponents on the same night twice. And he's also fought another tournament where he fought 2 opponents on the same night twice. All those fights ended by TK or submission. So he came in the UFC at the age of 20, undefeated, just won a bunch of tournaments. Between 18 and 20, he had like a ton of fights. He was a lightweight, struggled in the UFC in the early parts. He as a lightweight in 2012, he went 2-2 with 1 no contest. He went down to featherweight, went 7-5, missed weight on 3 occasions. In 2017, went back up to lightweight, went 9-1. After the loss to Felder, he changed training camps to the Chute Box Academy. And since then, he's now won 8 straight. He's been in the UFC so long. It's crazy to think he's only 31 and he's been in the UFC so long. He holds the record for most submission wins in history. Yeah. No one else even has half as many submission wins as he does.
Madness.
He's tied. Not even Hoist. So he has Hoist. I forget how many submission victories he has, but like Jim Miller is the next guy down or something like that. And it's just because Miller's been around for 85 years in the UFC. He's tied for the most finishes in UFC history at 16. He's also received 16 end of the night bonuses, which is the most in UFC history. Charles the Bronx, it just means from the Bronx, Oliveira, has risen to this occasion with 8 straight victories. Like, what a guy he is, right?
I know. I mean, look, when I was watching the fight history, again, going back to what I just said, I felt really stupid saying, I've got to watch tape, like as if it's such a, chore. It isn't at all. I was literally going through it. And every single fight, he starts off incredibly aggressive. I mean, the guy throws front kicks, he throws side kicks, he throws leg kicks right off the bat. Flying knees. Every single fight I've seen him, he starts off incredibly aggressive, and it's exciting to watch. I almost feel like he is, how Tony Ferguson used to be in his heyday, like just the aggressive pace and the pressure. Now, this is something that I did pick up on. So in the Felder fight, when I watched that the first time, I was like, this guy comes in quite hot right at the beginning, but does he have the cardio to last? Now, when he was dominating Felder in that first round at the beginning, first half of that first round, and then Felder took over, and then eventually got the finish in the second round. Now, when I watched it again, I just looked at it and I was like, maybe Charles doesn't have that cardio to go the full 5. But after that, as you mentioned, he switched camps. Felder even mentioned in one of his fights, he's been doing some crazy stuff with his cardio, running up hills and hitting pads and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like he's worked in his cardio, but I think that's going to be a major X factor, whether he has the cardio to go 5 rounds with Chandler. What do you think, Tim? Do you think the cardio would be a big factor?
I do. And that's a really fun thing that I wanted to talk about, because Michael Chandler has had mixed results, but he has fought in a 5-round fight 6 times in his career. He's gone to war with extremely aggressive fighters. Like you said, Eddie Alvarez, who sets a frantic pace. I think Chandler tends to fade in later rounds in a 5-round fight, but I think that's because he's fighting guys like Eddie Alvarez and Will Brooks, these guys who set insane paces, right? So it's really hard to actually estimate how he'll do. He looked really good in a 3-round fight with Tony Ferguson, who did reverse a couple of times, but he held control. So if you're holding control, maybe you're okay for 5 rounds. I don't entirely know, but it is absolutely a factor. It's an unknown factor coming into this fight that if it does go to the deep waters, to the championship rounds, we got a guy in Chandler who's a lot more experience. Now, in Chandler, he's had a mixed career as well. Even though he's won the Bellator title 2 or 3 times at this point, he lost it. He had 3 losses in a row in title fights. Some of them were by split decision. Some of them were by TKO. He has recently adopted a child in, I think, 2017, and he's reinvented himself. He's began taking on the philosophy of extreme ownership.
Yes.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah,
you know a little bit more about this. Tell me a little bit more about Michael Chandler's story.
I mean, I love it, man. I think I watched this off Mixed Molly Whoppery, so shout out Mixed Molly Whoppery. But I thought it was an incredible documentary. I mean, it's basically like, and it's a good lesson to everyone what Chandler was doing, and he admittedly did this when he took those losses, when he took those 3 losses. He even said, "Look, it wasn't, and I didn't really lose this fight." Making excuses for himself, all that kind of stuff. And he even said, I was in a really comforting place of self-pity, which he found to be very toxic eventually. He moved away from that mentality, and now he's a not world champion, but he's elite of the elite now in the UFC. So I think adopting that mentality of extreme ownership, really owning the fact that it's your kind of choice as to how a fight would go down as well. All that kind of stuff. And he even said, look, any fight that I've ever lost, it was kind of my fault. So I really liked seeing that. And I think personally, man, it's going to be a very hard fight to call. I've already got my decision again. But yeah, I just love the mentality of Michael Chandler. And that's the one thing that I think separates him from a lot of the pack. Just that spirit that he has.
Oh, absolutely. And he's shown that determination in his last couple of years here. He re-won the Bellator title. He came to the UFC. He's knocked out former champion Benson Henderson in the first round. Yeah. He's now made it to the UFC, 1 win, huge knockout. So since he's developed this mentality, I think he has won like 9 in a row or something like that. He's on a 3-fight knockout first round streak at the moment. So he's developed really well. Now, since not a former champion. Yeah, I don't have the exact record there, but so he also rose. Sorry, say it again.
I think he's 22-5 actually.
22-5. Oh, yeah. I just mean since developing the mentality.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So he competed in the NCAA finals a couple of times, and both times he came runner-up. So he said, when I went to collegiate wrestling, I might have told the coaches I'm going to be national champions, but in my heart, I truly believe it. So he says, you get to the point of success and you'll mess it up. And he says at this point in his life, he looks at himself as a champion. And now, since adopting that attitude, here he is fighting for the undisputed championship of the world, right?
Yeah. Do you think he's overconfident, though? There's a lot of things that he's saying lately where he's like, look, it's impossible for Charles Oliveira to submit me on the ground. And he's also talking about fighting the winner of Conor versus Dustin already. He's already planning it. He goes, look, I'm going to be at the event, going to fight one of those guys, and I'm going to be defending my title. I love the confidence. Now, is he too overconfident? Because that's a recipe for disaster. You don't want to be too overconfident. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't entirely know. It's hard when we get into mentality because it's such a variable, right? When we're looking at punches versus kicks, it's very easy to measure this beats this.
Yeah.
It's like arithmetic. We know what works against what. But when we're starting to get to a man's mentality, it's very hard to pick up. Well, he might be too overconfident because even since developing this mentality, I do have it here: 10 wins, 2 losses. But he still had a couple losses along the way since developing this kind of new mentality. So he does. I don't know. Is he overconfident? It's also a really good selling point. And
Yeah.
I like that he's taken a couple knocks along the way. Right, he's has a few losses in his career. You so rarely get those John Jones archetypes where they look like champions, they're undefeated to the championship, and they hold the championship for a decade. He's a guy who had to develop himself to grow to be a champion, and now he feels he's a champion. But maybe, like you said, it is too confident. If you literally think that Charles Oliveira can't submit you, that might be your downfall. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think what I could see happening, I mean, I could almost predict this. If he thinks that there's no chance of him getting submitted, if Charles Oliveira starts piecing him up on the feet, which could happen, starts throwing some nice kicks and flying knees. And this has happened many times with Charles. People get overwhelmed by the striking. They're like, fuck, I'm going to actually take you down. And then they just forget that he's a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. Next thing you know, he takes their neck and that's it, tap, tap, over. So it could happen to Chandler. I think that's a big concern. And I don't know. I mean, he's obviously knows his game plan more than anyone else. So yeah, I do see him potentially getting submitted if he comes in too overconfident. But I do like the confidence, man. I like the fact that he's coming and going, yeah, I'm going to be the champ. But whether it's too overconfident or not, time will tell.
No, yeah, and he does have that really good Oliveira. I mean, has a really good guillotine choke that he's used on Kevin Lee and Clay Guida. Kevin Lee and Clay Guida have spent years in MMA, and it's a surprise. A guillotine choke is like kind of the day one. You learn how to apply it, you learn how to defend from it.
Yeah,
and his guillotine is good enough that he's doing it against professional, experienced fighters such as Kevin Lee and
so
Clay
nasty,
Guida.
man. It's such a nasty squeeze. Like I'm looking at it, even against Felder. I think Felder was about to tap. He was just like, had his hand out, like, fuck, man, I'm going to tap. Even against Nick Lentz, he had him in a guillotine choke, and Nick Lentz is a very good grappler. Nick Lentz did a phantom tap, and it's like, holy shit, man, this guy is remarkably strong, especially for someone who he doesn't look like a big guy at lightweight, but in terms of his strength, he's extremely strong.
Yeah, he's a little bit wiry, isn't he? He doesn't look like a professional fighter. He looks like a guy who like goes to the gym and does radio shows on weekends or something.
He looks like a guy that does marathon running. Doesn't like necessarily want to do fights and is pacifist or something like that. He just doesn't look like that guy, man. And then you see what he did to Tony Ferguson and picking him up and slamming him twice and then mounting him. Like Rogan says, who does that to Tony Ferguson, man? No one.
Who does that? And it's a slam takedown. It's a deep double. Like, it's insane that he's scored that slam takedown a few times, but against Tony Ferguson of all people, that is absolutely madness.
Oh, it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It just showed me how damn strong he is. And it makes me think, could he do the same to Chandler? Could he take Chandler down like that? I know Chandler is a very big lightweight. He's not extremely tall, but he's 185 pounds on fight night. So he's going to come in heavier than Oliveira for sure. Do you think Oliveira takes Chandler down?
Okay, so the game plan that he says in interviews is that he's going to stand and bang with Chandler. And no, if Chandler wants to wrestle, he says, I'm happy to do jiu-jitsu off my back. That's where I'm at my strongest, in fact. So he says that he wants to use some of his Muay Thai. He has a couple of tools that can work really well, but he also has a few flaws that we've seen that don't work well. So what Chandler always does in all of his fights is aiming for this massive right hand. Now, against Hooker in his last fight, you saw him doing a fake low, shifting overhand right for the knockout. That is the exact combination that Cub Swanson used.
Was it not left?
It was the opposite side, but it was still the same combo. It was a fake low, shifting overhand.
Yeah.
Opposite side. Yeah, you're right. Now, he fixed that. Charles Oliveira fixed that. His next fight was against another big puncher in Jeremy Stephens. So you think if he's going to have a weakness to a big overhand, Jeremy Stephens is going to find it. He developed a shoulder roll in that fight, and then he shot for takedowns under the right hand every time in that fight. Since then, he's developed a couple of things like that front kick to maintain distance. He spams it all the time. That's what he does.
First thing, first kick he does, just a front kick to the face.
always a front kick to the face. He tries it on everybody. And I think it's just I don't know if he's aiming for a knockout or it's just to maintain distance, because he's always the longer, more wiry fighter than people. He does it with a really good teep. He does the good front kick. What he also always does that's interesting is he does a check hook. In the last 8 fights, he's developed a really good check hook.
The right hook.
That's landed on
money, man. It's so underrated. Like he did a nice he did a slip right hand counter on this guy, Jared Gordon. And I thought it was fucking beautiful. And he did a nice right straight on Nick Lentz as well. So this guy has got a very underrated right hand. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks Chandler out as well.
He's got a good right hand, but I'm just talking about the lead check hook. So when a guy comes in for a right, do the left hook. No one, we're on video, so I'm just showing you.
a demonstration and no one can see.
Yeah. No, I did go through Chandler's fights to see, is he getting caught by check hook? And he's getting caught by check hooks all the frickin' time. In fights that he wins, he's getting caught by the check hook. Like Brent Primus got knocked out. Before that, Brent Primus scored a knockdown off a check hook. Guys like Pitbull's not really a great example. They fought for like 8 seconds. It just knocked each other out. Sydney Outlaw, Eddie Alvarez, all these guys, Will Brooks, all these guys landed a check hook on him. So that might be a good path. What I see more than anything, though, is what everyone's talking about. Chandler stands so deep in his stance. He stands like Conor McGregor, and it's to generate massive power off his rear hand, but he stands so low that he's susceptible to leg kicks. He's lost via calf kicks in the past, and even in fights that he's won. Benson Henderson landed a bunch. Hooker in the last fight landed a ton of leg kicks.
It looks like a little bit as well.
It was the first round. He landed a ton of leg kicks, and it looked like Chandler may not have been able to stand on that leg. And Charles Oliveira in his last couple of fights have shown really strong leg kicks. So that, if I'm going to argue, that's going to be the path to victory on the feet for Oliveira. But what do you see? Break it down for me.
I mean, shout out to the calf kicks. But in terms of Oliveira, he throws a ton of kicks to the legs. I've noticed he likes to throw that a lot more in the last 2 fights. He did that against Tony. He did that against Kevin Lee. He's really developing into a really seasoned striker. So I do feel like that's a path to victory. I think he's got more weapons than Chandler, in all honesty, in terms of his actual striking credentials. He's got, again, as we mentioned, there's flying knees, there's crazy kicks that he has, spinning elbows. He throws everything. So I do think a path to victory for Oliveira is just to be himself, just to be throwing those crazy, unpredictable strikes and maybe outpoint Chandler. And hopefully Chandler goes for a takedown and, he could grab his neck or something. So, I think that's the path to victory. Just stick to the same thing that you were doing in the last few fights. Be very unpredictable, throw those kicks, throw those jabs, use your range as well. And it's definitely a winnable fight for Oliveira, for sure.
The winnable fight for Oliveira. Now, I think it's also a game planable fight against Michael Chandler, because he comes out and does the same thing every fight. We know what right hand he's looking for. He sets it up low. He throws a bunch of body punches, and then he's kind of trying to come over the top, and it works. He's knocked out really good fighters using it. So what the game plan often is. Now, he is a D1 NCAA wrestler, and he's used really good ground and pound in the past. What do you see as the path to victory for Michael Chandler?
Yeah, good question. With Chandler, he definitely is going to mix it up. It's going to be a bit more difficult for him, in my opinion, because predominantly he's a boxer, so he uses his hands a lot. I don't think he kicks too much. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't think he kicks a bunch. He's definitely not throwing the same kicks or flying knees or anything crazy like Oliveira is doing. So generally, you know what you're going to get with Michael Chandler. I think the main thing is just pressure. Just pressure him as much as possible. The same way he was stalking a hooker. Just keep chasing him down. Keep stalking him. Go for the finish. That's probably the path to victory for Chandler. Just keep that pressure up. Try and back Oliveira up, but it's easier said than done. Oliveira is so unpredictable what he does in his striking exchanges.
No, and it's tough because it's a style matchup where, so for example, a Kevin Lee fight, Kevin Lee was able to get reversals. He got some takedowns. He even got mount, and he landed some ground and pound because he's looking for ground and pound. Yeah. If you are trading submissions with Oliveira like Tony Ferguson does, Oliveira is going to outwork you and beat you all the time. But if you're just looking to get top position as a collegiate wrestler would be and land ground and pound, such as Paul Felder did, that might be the better path to victory. Yeah.
That's also a good point. I personally, Yeah, I personally think that probably would be a better path to victory. As we've seen before, he has been susceptible to ground and pound. As you stated, Kevin Lee, you got Paul Felder. It's happened a few times where he has taken, a bit of a beating on the ground. I don't think it's the safest path to victory, in my opinion. If I was Chandler, I would have thought, maybe pressuring him and keeping it on the feet is your best option. Here's the thing that I've seen with Chandler. Off his back, he's terrible. He's not terrible. He's not good, man. He's really not good. Like Will Brooks, he took him down. He didn't really look good, off his back or anything. And yeah, generally, this is the thing with wrestlers in MMA. They're not that great off their back usually. And I think Chandler is a great example of that. So in case he takes, just to kind of prevent him getting self reversed and, having Oliveira on top of him, I wouldn't make that the first kind of point of action. Maybe do that later in the round when, you've got like a minute left and it's very hard for Oliveira to submit you during that time. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Tim. I mean, ground and pound, keeping that top position. Sometimes Oliveira just lies there and just kind of almost, waits for a good opportunity to submit you. So yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, he throws up dozens of submissions off his back, which does play into like getting hit because he's looking to do something off his back. Yeah, with the Will Brooks fight, that's their one common opponent. It's hard to really learn anything from this fight. Like Will Brooks, they went to war with each other. It was a close fought split decision. And then it was a pretty tight wrestling match before Will Brooks won by TKO. And then he came to the UFC in 2017. Charles Oliveira submitted him in like 3 minutes. It's hard to really learn anything to see if there's any to see if there's really any.
By the way, I saw that link that you showed. Well, I saw the link of, because I didn't see that properly with Michael Chandler versus Will Brooks. And the funny thing is, Michael Chandler a few months ago, he was like, well, Charles Oliveira, he's a quitter. When things get tough, he just tends to quit. And he did this in the Paul Felder fight. And I was like, yeah, it's a good point, actually. At least Chandler's never quit. And then you brought up that great point. You showed me the video. Did it look like he quit? Or, did it look like he was out of it? It was so hard to tell.
Man, it's so weird. And even describing it, watching it a dozen times, it's so weird. He gets hit clearly by an overhand right, and then he just kind of like waves it off like he's confused as to where he is. It's like, it's a really weird thing. It looks like he just woke up from consciousness. It's like, man, I don't entirely know. And he hasn't really talked about it either. I don't entirely understand what happened either. But if we were to look at, has he quit? That would be the one time that he was like partially unconscious anyway. But yeah, Oliveira on the quitting side has had some weird stuff. Like the Cub Swanson loss, he kind of just like fell over after a second. The loss to Holloway, he was getting pieced up on the feet, and then he just like had a shoulder injury or something.
He was
like
so
that.
compromised at featherweight, though. I don't think he is even the same man. I mean, look, I don't know if you remember this. He lost. I mean, I'm no disrespect to Frankie Edgar. He's a legend. He lost to Frankie Edgar on the feet. Can you imagine him? Can you imagine Frankie Edgar going up to lightweight now and fighting Oliveira and winning now? Man, you see that happening. It's crazy.
No, man, it's insane. Like, he was the guy that was, if you had a champion who needed to get back into the win column, like Frankie Edgar and Max Holloway, well, we'll throw Oliveira at him. And I think that's why they gave him, like, Tony Ferguson needs an easy win. Well, we'll give him Oliveira. And suddenly this kid, he's improved a lot.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I'm super excited for this fight, honestly. It's going to be hard for me to kind of, I mean, I've picked the winner, but I've gone back and forth with this a few times. Now, picking a winner, I've actually gone with Oliveira, and that's not the general consensus. A lot of people are just assuming that Chandler's going to blow Oliveira away. The reason why I think Oliveira is going to win, purely because of the diversity of strikes that he has. He's got so much diversity in his strikes. He's not afraid of getting taken down, which Chandler will probably do if he's in trouble on the feet. I think he'd have an answer for everything. And I think Oliveira could even take him down. I think generally he's a better mixed martial artist than Chandler. I could be wrong though. Chandler could knock him out really early and then I'll be completely wrong. But if I had to put, if someone was to put a gun to my head, I think I would pick Oliveira just for those reasons. What about you, Tim?
It's really tough to pick this fight. Both guys want to be the aggressor. They want to push their opponents back against the cage. And they both have different routes to get there. It's really hard to see how this fight goes, but it seems like whoever is going to be the aggressor will be where they want to be, and maybe you start picking apart their opponent from there. It's really hard if Michael Chandler goes for a takedown. He might just be in a compromised position. If Michael Chandler gets taken down, that might be the best path, but Oliveira, it sounds like he doesn't want to do that. It's extremely hard to pick this fight because it seems like some of their strengths play to their opponent's weaknesses, but it works on both sides. Both of their strengths are their opponent's weaknesses. Like you said, if I had to pick someone, I want to pick Oliveira because I want to believe in great storytelling in sports media. And that's a kid from the favela rising to the UFC championship. And that makes a great story. And for that reason alone, I broke down this fight. I watched hours and hours of tape, but I'm just like, man, I like Oliveira. I'm going to pick him.
You're going to go with your heart. I love it.
Go with my heart, but I wouldn't be surprised if this new attitude, he's a new father.
Could be completely wrong. Could
just be a knockout.
Wrong, mate. I mean, we could be saying all this great stuff about Oliveira. Saturday night hits, and then Chandler just knocks him out with a big right hand, like he's done many times before. So, and honestly, what a great story if Chandler wins as well. I think that's great. It's it's great for Bellator as well, because even Scott Coker was like, "This is Bellator versus UFC." Which is amazing. I love that shit, man. He probably got into Dana's head by saying that.
Oh man, I like it too, because we haven't actually had any like real competition for the UFC for so long. But if Chandler wins, we're going like, man, he just lost like 3 fights ago to their champion in Patricio.
And Patricio is a small featherweight, man. I mean, if he came down to featherweight, the UFC featherweight division, he might be undersized, honestly. So for him to go to lightweight and knock Michael Chandler out, that was very bizarre to me. I wasn't expecting that, but he got it with a nice shot to the temple, which will take out a lot of people.
Well, that's the thing. And it's hard to really learn anything of like, you threw a massive right hand and it knocked your opponent out. Yep. That's what happens when you throw massive right hands. Yeah. That'll happen in any fight. So now we have the easiest question in the world next. Depending on who wins, who's next?
Who's next? I mean, come on. Has to be Tony Ferguson, man.
Wait, what the hell are you talking about?
I'm joking. Any listeners out there, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? No. I mean, honestly, the real title fight, let's be real honest, is Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. So the winner of that is 100%. I mean, unless both of them go into some ridiculous war where they're out for a year, which could happen. It has to be the winner of them. I mean, who else could it be, man? It can't be anyone else.
No, everyone's at lightweight has been cleared out. Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, that does set up who's next for the title. Yeah. Clearly, as of right now, not knowing anything else, I'll save it. I won't say anything on that one, but I do like Dustin Poirier. It's just a matter of how much damage Dustin Poirier has taken in his career. He says himself he's only got a few fights left because he's taking so much damage.
I'm going to just
man, keep it locked to
spoiler alert, guys. Spoiler alert.
Stay tuned. We got so much Catholic sports coverage.
I might change my mind in the next few months anyway. So that's a tidbit.
Man, it's a fun fight we got coming up. Justin Gaethje's still there. I picked Justin Gaethje a little bit more confidently over either of these two men than I do with Conor or Dustin. Like, I think Gaethje, with his new reinvention that he's found, I think he kind of wins the title. It's just a matter of, is he next? He's coming off a loss.
I don't think so, man. I think he needs another win. You know what I'd love to see? And this is what really pissed me off about Gaethje, like really pissed me off. The fact that he beat Tony Ferguson and a few months later, he's saying Tony Ferguson is an elite. I'm like, how fucking dare you, mate? He's the only guy that you beat that's elite, man. And you're trying to say he's not elite. Like, I found that such a ridiculous comment. So I'd love to see the rematch, and I'm definitely going to be rooting for Tony. Not that I hate Justin or anything. I'd like to see Tony make a bit of a comeback. I don't think he is. I think I'm living in a bit of a fairy tale. But if he beats Beneil Dariush, I'd love to see that setup of a rematch. That would be incredible. And I'd like to see Tony not cut weight twice before a fight. That would be good.
And Tony, there's so much that I want to talk about with Tony Ferguson. And now we're going to be covering that fight in another episode. So stay tuned, stay subscribed to Catholic Sports. But yeah, I just want to break down Tony, where his mentality's at after a string of losses, how he's doing. But yeah, like you said with Justin Gaethje, it's a weird thing to beat somebody and then turn around and say like, well, that guy sucked. Of course I beat. It's a weird, because that doesn't make you look better.
Yeah.
Like everyone should be more like Max Holloway, where he beat Jose Aldo and was like, man, Jose is the greatest fighter in the history of this sport. Like, yeah,
it'd take ages, man, for me to match that. And then for Gaethje to say that, I found that incredibly disrespectful. But it could just be hype, man. He could just be talking just to get that rematch again, just because.
But yeah, it's an interesting title fight because you and I just listed off a bunch of guys and we're like, yeah, this guy probably beats him. This guy probably beats him. I mean, is it the undisputed UFC championship?
I mean, as much as it is, mate. I think after that first title defense, it will be upgraded to the UFC, lightweight title. Right now, I feel like it's a bit more of an interim title.
I can see that. I feel that
it's a bit more of an interim title. Once they do that defense, the first title defense, then yeah, I definitely agree that is the champion of the division. Right now, though, it's hard for me to buy that, whoever wins on Saturday is going to be the undisputed lightweight champion. And I think, yeah, again, first title defense is going to be telling.
Oh, absolutely agree. No, Justin Gaethje, you said he maybe needs another win. Who doesn't have a fight? So going down the rankings, the only person who's not booked to a fight who's ranked high is Rafael dos Anjos.
Oh,
I think that'd be a fun fight.
But Justin probably is such a dark horse in this division. We don't even talk about him enough, man. He's so good.
He's a guy who so clearly has one weakness. He's great everywhere else, right? His counter wrestling is garbage, but if you're not wrestling him, he probably beats you up.
Well, if you're not a welterweight and you're not over 195 pounds,
that's it.
I mean, look, who did he lose to at welterweight? He lost to Covington, he lost to Usman, and I can't remember who else he lost to. Another wrestler. Maya? No, he didn't.
Michael Chiesa, Edwards, a couple of guys like this.
Yeah, just big fucking welterweights, man. He's not a natural welterweight. I mean, he probably had to put on a lot of bulk to kind of get himself bigger at welterweight. But yeah, that'll be a fun fight to break when we talk about RDA next. It's gonna be good.
No, I love Rafael dos Anjos. He's huge fun, a lot of fun. Him versus Gaethje would be a great fight. I don't know if they're going to do it because I don't know what they're doing with Gaethje if he does need a win, but we'll see. But yeah, okay. Plugs and subs. So let Calf Kick Sports, make sure to subscribe here on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram, Calf Kick Sports there. My name's Tim Wheaton, MMA. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram. Ash, what else do we need to cover off today?
Tune in, guys. We're going to have one more video in a few days with Tony Ferguson and Dariush. It's going to be a good one. I'm actually looking forward to that one even more than this one. So tune in. And yeah, like and subscribe, share to your grandma, share to your stepmom, share to your baby mother, whoever.
That's perfect. All right, we're out of here. Good night, folks. Thanks for subscribing. Bye.